I'd like to welcome Glory St. Germain today, and she's our guest today. Welcome, Glory.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Gillian.
So am I. And Glory, you live in a beautiful part of the world in Canada with your husband, Ray, and is it Manitoba? Is that how we say it?
Yes, Manitoba. Yes, friendly Manitoba.
Oh, good. And I guess it gets really cold and snows there.
Yes, we live in Winnipeg, but we also call it Winterpeg because it's very, very, very cold. So it is allowed that you're wearing fur coats because it's so cold.
Oh,
and
really?
Yes, yes.
Oh, that's great. And so you've always lived in Winnipeg and raised your kids then, everything there?
Yes, absolutely. We've got 5 kids, and all of them are musicians and entertainers in the music industry, and born and raised in Manitoba.
Oh, that's great. And Gloria, you have taught both private piano, you've taught group piano,
Yes.
and theory classes, and really the whole gamut from little ones and beginners and young ages right the way through to advanced students that have gone on to get diplomas and what have you.
Yes.
So tell us about your own journey as a piano teacher.
Well, I started teaching when I was 16 years old. I didn't know anything. I should probably give them their money back, but I know I should. But I love teaching. I love teaching music. And, you know, when I was a little girl, I used to teach my dolls. Most people play dress up with their dolls, but I used to line them all up and I would teach them because I was just a born teacher. And I think when I started teaching, really, I just wanted to buy a car. And so that was kind of my ultimate motivation was make some money, you know. But through the years, it really led me to professional development and to continue with my own studies and attain my ARCT diploma, which is a certification from the Royal Conservatory of Music. And I'm really proud of that. It was a long journey, but I love to learn. And you know, I think we continue to learn. Even though we're teachers, we still keep learning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that, you've been a continual learner through your whole life. And I remember we spoke fairly recently. I was thinking, how do you fit it all in? Because we're all busy with our lives, aren't we? So,
yes.
You know, any tips about how you fit it all in?
Well, I think when I think back, you know, one of the things, of course, is you've got to have a schedule, and you and I are one of those where we kind of live by the calendar. And I think how I really continuously learn is that I do plan for that. My parents were all about NEPD, never-ending professional development, and my options were when I was little is, Glory, you can do the dishes, or you can go practice the piano. And so that was easy, you know, hit that easy button. Off I went to play the piano. And my dad paid me, true story, my dad paid me $1 per hour for practicing the piano. And then when I attained my ARTC, he said, oh, now that you're teaching and making lots of money, could I have my money back? Because I said, no, no, it's all mine. It's all me. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny because my mum used to say the same thing. Oh, go and make your bed. Well, do you want me to go go do your piano practice, go make your bed. And say, well, do you want me to do the piano practice or make your bed? Oh, go and do your piano practice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Way more fun. Way more fun.
Yeah. So what prompted you? I mean, your dad was musical and you grew up, and gosh, he played a wide range of instruments and what have you. So
absolutely.
What prompted you to start learning?
Well, as I said, it wasn't really an option. My dad played multiple instruments. My mom also played the violin and the accordion. And in our house, learning was like brushing your teeth, you know, it's not an option. But I think it really established that happy habit of practicing. And it's really become the foundation of continued learning for me. It's just part of what I do all the time. And as my students became more advanced too, like I realized that, well, if you want to teach at that level, you need to continue with your own professional development because otherwise they're going to leave you. And so, as my students were growing, I realized that if I want to expand my music business, I need to expand my music knowledge and ultimately my profession as an author, you know, which really led me to developing the Ultimate Music Theory series.
Oh, that's great. And you're really good at sharing all of your learnings through your series, and you've put a whole range of courses together as well.
Yes.
And I'm very lucky because I've been doing your course for the teacher certification, Ultimate Music
Yes.
Theory certification course.
Yes.
But you've written really about 50 books, is that right?
Right. You know, it's funny you said that, Gillian, because I remember when Sheila and I actually counted, and, you know, sometimes you work as you do and you don't even realize either how many students you have or all of that. And the Ultimate Music Theory program really, yay, is now 51 books and counting. Yeah, we're not done. Yes, we're not done. My writing partner and editor, UMT examiner, Sheila McKibben-Uren, and I, we're really passionate about providing those easy to understand theory books. And we really want to help students learn. I mean, it's the universal language. It doesn't matter what country you live in. When you open up a music book, you're reading notation. And the other thing we're passionate about is really supporting teachers with continued education and teaching resources. So we got you covered.
Yeah. So what came first? Because these are some of the Gloria's books. This is the your basic rudiments. Did this one come first, and then out of that grew your complete rudiments, or
Yeah,
did you start with teacher ones and come all the way down? How did you start?
Well, actually, what happened was, and I think it's a great question, because when I was a young teacher, I really was struggling with understanding theory. I didn't like theory. The books that I was learning from were too complicated, and I was really frustrated. And so when I started writing, I wanted to make sure to make it, you know, easy to understand and simple. And so I found myself writing these worksheets, and ultimately I was writing explanations, examples, and exercises. So my very first book was the yellow book, the Basic Rudiments Workbook. And I
got one of those.
You do. That was my very first book. I wrote basic, intermediate, and then advanced. And at that time, I had this, you know, massive success with my students, and realized I should be sharing this with the world. And eventually, teachers came in and said, you know, I want to be teaching your books. And so I had a vision. I wanted to help teachers teach with confidence, and I wanted to make it easy for students to learn. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that led to, so the three cores here, the basic,
Yes.
the base, oh no, they're the prep ones, aren't they? But anyway, the basic rudiments book and everything,
Yes.
and that intermediate. And then this is actually the compilation. So this is the whole three of those together. And this is actually what your teacher certification course is based on, isn't it?
Yes, we go through basic, intermediate, and advanced. So those three books in detail. And I think one of the passions was really creating a course. You know, as I traveled and was presenting workshops, I found that teachers were grateful for the workbooks, but what they were struggling with is exactly the same thing that I struggled with as a young teacher, that they didn't have the tools and the knowledge, because where do you learn this information? What's interesting is that as I was writing the workbooks and really wanted to provide this for educators, I realized that what they also needed was the same thing that I needed. And that's, how do you teach? What are the words that you use? You may understand a concept, but it's a whole nother thing to explain it. And we have different learning styles. So how can we really be effective and help all these different learning styles? I think I was blessed. I had, you know, hundreds and hundreds of students that I taught, all with different learning styles. So it was quite a challenge. Yeah.
And that's the wonderful thing with your certification course, is that you actually have included, not only do we have the content of all of these, the theory knowledge, and this is the answer book that goes along with this,
yes.
by the way, if you're wondering what that is. Not only do you have all of that, and what is really great about that is that it's taking a lot of, I mean, I've done it's written in three groups, basic,
yes.
the intermediate and advanced. Well, I've done the two bottom levels. And what is really good, even though, is that you're really taking the fundamental principles and really expanding it out, you know, into well, of course, we're learning modes and things like that, which is fabulous. But it's also things like compound time. And we are used to very often just working in maybe 6/8, 9/8, 12/8. But you're taking that and going into the 16th and, in other things. And it's the same principles, but you really got to think about it. You've got to think, what is the principle? How do I apply it? What is the beat now? We're not looking at double or dotted crotchets. We're looking at dotted quavers, and therefore what does it? It really makes you think.
It does. It really does make you think. And, as I said, I think sometimes it's a blessing to struggle with things, because one of the most complex concepts to teach is rhythm and rest and rhythm division. And so we actually have, and it's exclusive to Ultimate Music Theory because it was developed by us to simplify rhythm concepts. And when we call them scoops, and when you take rhythm division and break it down into those simple steps, when can you use a dotted rest? You can't use a dotted rest in simple time.
I learned that out.
That's a no, because of the pulse. And so we're really teaching these concepts with pulse, strong, weak, and strong, weak, medium, weak, and also the dotted pulse, strong dot, weak dot, if you're talking about 6/8 time. So there's so much to learn. And if you don't know those basics, what are you going to do when you get to hybrid time? And now you've got mixed meters of 7/4, and it gets more complicated. And I can tell you honestly, I'm so proud of the success of the students that are using the Ultimate Music Theory workbooks, because we actually have a 100% club on our website, and many of the teachers will go on and they'll say, this is the mark that, obviously 100% that my student received. And we have a special 100% club certificate that we send to our students. And it's really because they've taken the steps that we're giving them to really be successful.
Yeah. And I think that historically in exams, theory exams here, back to the rhythm thing, rhythm is one of the things that is done so badly. It's all the way through. And it does take some little kind of strategies like what you're doing, like let's put the beats up the top, and let's the strong, weak, medium, and just use some simple steps to go through that make sure we get it right. And I think one of the other things I really like is that you very much, this isn't what you make us do, but the circle of fifths, and you're very, and there's a number of, you have like a map, isn't it?
Yes.
Each level that we have to write out, that all your students write out. And it's just one of those things where you learn to draw, a keyboard so that they can work some stuff out. We do the same thing in our music fundamentals. There's some basic things that they do that helps them remember, and it just reinforces the learning, which is really great. And
I think it helps them have that understanding too, because when you open a music book, whether you're playing the piano or you're playing any instrument for that matter, you need those tools. And sometimes the musicians, jazz musicians, or even if you're improvising, you have to know the pocket, like where is the groove, how can I understand that? And if you have the fundamentals of theory knowledge, then your musicianship skills are just going to soar. It's just going to be so much easier for you to learn, speak the language. And especially now, I mean, you're, in Australia and I'm here in Canada. And when you and I get together and in Chicago and have our own little jam session, like we'll speak the same language, because that's the great thing about musicians. We've got one language and we know how to connect.
And I think it is, and it is the language. And just as English, we have to learn how to write essays. We learn how to write sentences and what have you. We need to learn how to write, and what all of the little, elements that make up a sentence. Well, we need to know all the little elements and what all the rules are to make up this language of music. And and I think, as you say, whether you're improvising or not, and a good ear. That combination of a good ear, because I found myself when I was doing the papers, I'd be going, I'd be hearing it in my head, and also checking it from in both dimensions, from orally, but also from that. And I can do that. Not everybody can do that, but it is that combination of both. You can't just rely on one thing. You can't just rely on your ear, and you can't just, it's not good. Although, you can get a long way by understanding the theory, but that combination of both of them together is really, really a magic, isn't it?
It is. And, one of the things that I often talk about is that regardless of your learning style, whether you're a visual, auditory, or kinesthetic learner, when you write things down, you actually retain 30 to 40% more information than strictly through visual or auditory. And it's important to notate that. It's how we remember things better, because you can imagine a world where no one ever wrote anything down. They just listened and watched. It would not be as effective learning as if we engage in the act of writing. So when we do all three modalities, that's when the magic happens, as you said.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing with our exam system in Australia here now, they're actually moving almost, I think there'll be a big move into only doing it online. So they do their exams online. So the students have to just really doing it on a digital device. So they're pulling in a treble clef and pulling in notes and what have you. But I really think, like you say, it's the actual act of writing.
Yes.
And that it's a kinesthetic thing, it's a visual thing. You're actually sometimes speaking to yourself in your brain as you're writing. I don't know, that physical act of writing, I just think it just makes the learning so much more memorable.
Yeah. Yes, it does. And what's interesting, I speak, well, obviously I'm in a family of musicians, and I can tell you that my daughter, who is a professional musician, she's actually a music producer in Las Vegas. When she's composing, she still will take her pencil, my trusty yellow pencil. She will still take her pencil and her staff paper and go to the keyboard and write out her chord charts or whatever it is that she's doing. So even though, sure, now we'll use electronics and maybe Finale or whatever we're using to notate the music because we're creating publications. But you talk to any musician and most of them will say, if I'm going to be writing lyrics to a song, or I'm going to be writing chord charts, or I'm going to just be notating my music on the staff, I've got this melody in my head, it is still, and you've got to know how to draw an eighth note or a quarter note or a treble clef. I mean, you need to know how to do this, and you can't just, pull it online. It still needs the active writing, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you're doing anything creative, that sort of physical activity, it just sort of allows you to actually be your creative juices. It's a little bit
for sure.
Doing the other way.
So
I've been, as I said, I've been so lucky to have seen Under the Hood and to have been in and doing some your ultimate certification course, music theory certification. But I thought we might be able to share what it looks like with our viewers.
Sure, absolutely. I'll see if I can share right now. So one of the things that, we talked a little bit about was all the different components of the Ultimate Music Theory certification course. So when you log into your course, so you will start here, you can actually see that the certification course has 51 sessions, and it's divided into 3. So you have basic, intermediate, and the advanced sessions. At the top, you see there's a little gold bar. And it really helps you stay on track. Like how many sessions have you done? Where am I? In the very first session, you will see on the right-hand side. So I'll just kind of click through here. And on the right-hand side, you'll see that there's your downloadable worksheets. And one of the things that I'm passionate about is NLP, never-ending professional development, but also NLP. And so NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, and you're going to be learning about that in the certification course as well. So when you click on the very first session, I'm just going to open this up so you can see this. This is where you're going to find your worksheets. So here you can see you're learning about basic, intermediate, and advanced. And when you download the very first one, you can see that it's kind of like a little, your own report card,
Checklist.
your own little checklist. And I'm sure you did this as well, Gillian. And just keeping track of where are you in the course as you're going through it. When you come back into the course, on the right-hand side, you'll just click in next session. And as you're going through the videos, they actually are really a fantastic resource because you can go through them at your own tempo. I know how busy teachers are. We've got family, we've got our schedules. And so in the certification course, you can go at your own tempo. You have lifetime access to it. So you can go through it as you would like to. So if you're looking at the sessions, I'll just kind of play a bit so you'll actually see that I'm your teacher and I'm guiding you through it. In the very first session here, it's about your window and your learning style. And it's really important to, first of all, identify your learning style, whether you're visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, or whether you understand the learning style of your students. And one of the really important things is, as I took my NLP training, and it can cost you thousands of dollars, as it did for me anyway, to go through that professional development. As I was creating the certification course online, I thought, I really, really need to include this. And it's that important that I put it right into the course, because you can know everything there is. And I'm sure you've been a teacher, or you've recognized teachers that seem to know so much, and yet they're not good communicators. And ultimately, that's what we are. We are educators, and we have to know how can we communicate really effectively. So when you're downloading the worksheets, so if we're going into the second one.
And I think we're back a word on neuro-linguistic program. I also have done the training for NLP, and
Yes.
it is very much a course that has been designed for psychologists,
Yes.
counseling.
Yes.
For people to do. Of course, because it's about communication.
Yes.
That's why it's so relevant to what we do. But I think what
Absolutely.
you've done is taken that knowledge and that learning and applied it to us in a teaching situation, and how we can best use this information to
Absolutely.
talk to our and relate to our students.
And I think one of the reasons too that I wanted to include it is that taking an NLP course, and you've done so as well, it's very time consuming. In order to become a practitioner, there's a lot of homework, a lot of case studies that you have to do, a lot of research, a lot of modeling, and understanding submodalities. And so with all of that, I thought, I'm just going to take the most important concepts that are really applicable to teachers.
Yes.
And so we can use them, because there is a difference between using NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, to understand how to communicate more effectively. And then there's also becoming an NLP practitioner, where you are helping students that have, challenges as far as maybe their subconscious, something traumatic happened in their youth and things like that. So that's a different thing.
Yeah.
But we are, kind of counselors when we're talking, when we're going through this. So as you're working through, you'll see the very first session too. I think I have it up here, your window and your learning style. So we really want to identify that first of all. And you can see what's bad about you. I'm kind of flipping through some of the little exercises that are in here. But I really think that when we're learning, and there's your window, and moving on into the next session, that I want to help you not only be a super effective music theory teacher, because I'm providing you with all those little tips and tricks and tools, but I want to help you become a better communicator as well. And one of the sessions here, actually, I think there were some of the comments in session 3 even were teachers that are saying, oh, I'm watching this in preparation for my brand new basic class, and I'm so thankful to have this resource so readily available. Ruth says, I like party space number 3. That's where the action is. You'll have to watch the video to realize what that one is. My songs must rhyme. Ivy Wong, who's from Hong Kong, one of our certified teachers, said your explanations are very clear. And I think these are the important things that we really want to, teach our students easily in a way that they're going to understand, right?
Mm. And one of the things, if we go on the NLP, I really love the way that or the learning styles, you really gave us a lot of cues as to what to look for when you're talking to your students to try and figure out what their learning style is. Because essentially with learning styles, we all teach, usually we actually explain or we deliver information in the way that makes sense to us. And that's our learning style. So we teach others the way it makes sense to us, but we've got to recognize, of course, that our students have different learning styles. And so it's about keying into, what I wonder how they learn most effectively. And then it's up to us to actually bend ourselves around to be able to help them access the information the best way.
Absolutely. One of the things too, that as you're going through the certification course, you will learn is that it's important to identify your learning styles, and I'm going to give you, the things that you listen for, the things that you look for. It's an interesting thing. I had a teacher who called me up. She's, completed the certification course, and she said, I really want to share with you something that was mind blowing for me. She said, I had a young boy that I taught for several years, and she said, we just had this little thing that we didn't quite connect, and I don't really know why, but it was just, one of those things. And she said, and after taking the certification course, I realized that he was a visual or auditory learner. And she said, and I'm a visual learner. So she said, every time he would ask me, can you play the piece for me? I'd always say, no, read your music, read your music. And she said, the next lesson he came in, she thought, well, okay, I'm taking this course. I'm going to apply what I've learned. So she said, I'm going to play a piece for you, and I just want you to play it back for me. And she said his face just lit up. And so she played, the Addams Family, ba-da-da-dum, da-da-da-dum. And at any rate, he played it back perfectly, the whole piece. And she just said, wow, she was so impressed. She said, I could never do that. I always have to read my notes. And she said, when he left, he kind of looked at her and said, that's like the best piano lesson I ever had. And she said she was so uplifted and thought, wow, there's this breakthrough. And even as I was going through my NLP training and implementing what I was learning with my students, I had these aha moments of realizing, well, this is a kinesthetic learner. And just by the way that they would talk and the way they would communicate with me, it opened my eyes to being a better teacher. And ultimately, that's what we all desire is how can I be a better teacher, and how can I affect my students in a profound way so they'll, remember me for the rest of their life.
Exactly. And I think, back to the story about the boy who, when she played the Addams Family, and he was an auditory learner. And this is sometimes about, and you explain all of this, isn't it? That it's about meeting them where they're at, and then taking them on the journey. So just because that boy is an auditory learner doesn't mean you have to teach him everything by ear.
Absolutely.
It's about connecting with them by ear or in their learning style, and then leading them. But you can't lead them anywhere if you're trying to go, no, you've got to read. And he's going, well, hang on a minute, I want to listen. Oh, but you got to read. Because you're just in the two, as you're parallel tracks, really, and not merged together. And you go through that. And I think that's really fascinating.
Yes. And you're absolutely right, Gillian, and what you just said is that if you want to really change a pattern and help your student, you can't lead them if you don't match their body language, where they're at, because that's the key, is that we do want them to read music, obviously, but you have to first match where they are, and then you can lead them. And I have spent, years of research and development in creating the Ultimate Music Theory certification course because I wanted to help teachers be more effective with their teaching and have more fun, because then, when we share our knowledge and help our students grow, we also grow as educators. And that's really the key. And also, I didn't want them to have to take 10 years. It took me 10 years to create this program. 10. I don't want you to have to spend 10 years doing all of this.
It's the way to fast track your way through this.
This is the way to fast track your way out of it. Yeah. And it's not going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars, which it did cost me because of course
Yeah.
I had to go through all these courses, but I'm so excited about presenting it. And I think they're really going to enjoy the NLP.
Yeah, absolutely. And
part of
the
it.
other thing, this is it's such a great course for teachers, because not only do you learn all these the learning style stuff and the theory, and really get really dynamically, your knowledge is really settled in, because you really making them use it this way, and now use it this way, and now use it this way. So it's really robust from that point of view. But also you show us how to teach, how to use this knowledge and teach classes, so we can actually earn a little bit more money than just teaching one-on-one all the time. So would you like to talk to us about that?
Yes, one of the things, I taught music for young children for over 20 years, so I am definitely in the group lesson as you are, and it's just way more fun to do it that way. But when you are teaching and you're telling, you're saying the same thing over and over and over again, and I actually did a paper on the cooperative learning theory, because we actually learn more effectively, in fact, when we're learning in small groups. And when you're teaching in small groups, you're also going to be making more money than if you're just teaching one-on-one privately. And one of the things, I mean, we really are providing you with all of the success tips, because not only are we providing you with the education to teach it and the NLP training on how to, communicate more effectively, but we're also giving you the lesson plans that are structured specifically to teach group classes. You have a 1-hour theory club class. What do you do first? What do you do second?
Can you show us that in the on
yes.
one of those things? So just, I think, is
absolutely
it intermediate?
I will just where's my mouse? It's always about the mouse. Here we go, I think. Okay, so as you're I'm just going to go back into the certification course right here. And actually, when you're searching, you can just put in intermediate. Oh, I should have left up my little session here. Actually, I think, there we go. So now I'm going to look in my handy dandy little thing here, because when you are going through the course, and I believe we have it here. So at the end of the basic sessions, you can see it says UMT Club Class session number 16. So I'm actually going to just jump over to that one for a second. If I can get, okay, so basic session 16. My little search, basic. Session 16. When you're going through basic session 16, what I actually did in this particular session, I'll just mute it here so it won't be loud, is that I actually go through that entire class as I'm teaching a class. So you're experiencing firsthand, what does it look like? What does it sound like as you're going through the course? Because if you've never taught a group class before, you might be a little nervous about teaching it. The other questions you might have, well, where am I going to get students from? And I'm going to help you with that. What marketing materials am I going to use? You know how expensive and how long it takes to create marketing materials at a professional level? Very time consuming, and I know that because I do it. And because I've done it, I am now giving this to you, which is all included in the certification course. So your marketing materials are there. You're going to learn how to teach the theory club classes. Where do you find these students? How can you fill your classes? Does it matter if they're all at the same level in their piano, or only in their theory? Or does it matter if they're brothers and sisters? Can they come into the same class? So all those questions that you have, we're there to answer those questions for you, so you can start right now and say, I am a theory club teacher, and all you basically need is your kitchen table and 5 chairs, and you're done. One of the things I'm very passionate about, and you'll hear me say a lot in the certification course, and that is speed of implementation. Speed of implementation is when you are taught something, you immediately implement it. And I can tell you, one of the teachers that, Hetty is her name, and she took the certification course, and honestly, before she was even through the entire course, she had already implemented a theory club class. I believe she had like 10 students in her class. She was making like $500 an hour, this lady was, but she was an action taker. And that's really what it takes. You know, I am providing you with everything you need to be successful. And now it's up to you to say, okay, I'm in. I'm going to make a commitment to grow my teaching studio, to get all of the knowledge that I need to really put this together and be successful. And it's easy. If I can do it, anybody can do it, believe me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's so right, Glory. And I've really been enjoying completing my basic and my intermediate. And now I'm working on my advanced. And I've been introduced in this process to Sheila. So tell us about Sheila and how you guys got together. And
oh yes, well that's a good little story. So Sheila McKibben-Uren, who is the UMT examiner, she's also the co-author with me on the supplemental series. And so how that started was when I had written my first 3 books, Basic, Intermediate, and Advanced, I received this email from this lovely, very professional piano teacher. And she said, oh my gosh, Glory, I love, love, love your books. I, for the first time ever, totally understand modes. And modes are introduced in the advanced level. And I must admit that my own theory teacher that I did my music degree with, she told me that my lesson on modes, that lesson alone was worth the price of the book. She said it was brilliant, and she didn't give compliments out very easily. So I'll take that compliment.
Yeah.
At any rate, Sheila said, I love that on modes. And if you're ever interested in getting an editor, like I would be available. And I said, oh my goodness. Well, as a matter of fact, I was just writing prep 1 and prep 2. And I said, I do need an editor. And then she sent me like 15 pages of suggestions. And I went, oh, wow, she's really serious. So it's how our journey began. And it was just, you know, we were just blessed to find each other. And now, of course, we're a writing team. We've been together for 10 years and really have a lot of fun creating programs. And, you know, the interesting thing about Sheila too, is that she does a lot with, she's a foster parent. She also deals with learning disabilities. So she has studied and knows a lot about that. She's also dyslexic. And so we come from very different learning styles ourselves. You know, she calls me Yogi and I call her Boo Boo, and I'm not the yoga yogi, I'm the Yogi Bear, because she thinks I'm smarter than the average bear, but it's really a lot of fun. It really is.
Well, about Boo Boo, she's really, really tough on those.
Yes,
on any Boo Boos one makes.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Well, you know what's interesting, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Gillian, because when you are taking the certification course, and Sheila she's a very kind, but very strict marker. Yes. She's there to support you. But, you know, you do, I mean, if you're not feeling confident, like you're 100% confident in your teaching, then your students aren't going to be 100% confident either. And although the requirements for the certification course are a pass of 80%, you know, our teachers, all of our teachers have achieved over 90% on their final, you know, accumulation of their exams. And it tells me 2 things. It tells me, 1, that we've done a good job of teaching, and 2, that you've done a good job as a student. You've watched all the videos, you've gone through the course materials, and you've done your homework. And that's what we expect from our students as well, right?
Yeah. Well, I think as a teacher, taking a course, you know, sometimes with many exam bodies, if you get 65% to pass or 75%, sometimes you have to get a B for or a, you know, 75%, I think, in our ABB grade 5 to do your diploma. But if you're going to teach it, you actually have to know 100%, because if you got 25% wrong, that means that 25% you're teaching, you haven't got it right. So therefore you could be passing on 25% of incorrect information.
Yes. Well,
So
one of the things I always say, if they go, wow, that you're really requiring a high mark in this course. And I said, well, can you imagine if you went to your doctor and on his certificate it said he got a 60% on his final and you'd be like, I'm not going to that doctor. He only got 60% on his final exam. So no, I think we really, and we do want, and the thing is that it's so possible. We have a lot of, as I mentioned, 100% Club on our website. A lot of teachers can easily attain that level if they're given the right information. And
yeah.
so often, as I was researching, how to write effective books for learning, I actually found an article that said that, very interesting, I found anyway, that workbooks can actually be detrimental to your learning because of how they're laid out. And I really did a lot of research on design for books. We found that, the square boxes that we have, they attract the eye, the indentation where we have little notes, the memory joggers. There's actually 9 mnemonic devices that we use throughout the certification course and within our workbooks. And those mnemonic devices, so mnemonic devices are memory joggers. They help us retain information, such as the letter M when we're talking about the melodic intervals, right? Because it's a side, I put little circles there, little notes that are side by side, and things like that really help students learn faster.
Yeah, that's right. And those mnemonic devices are part of what's on those maps that you ask us to write out, so that they're memory joggers for the students. And if they can do that and write that map out, when they have to actually bring that, go, oh yes, that's right, I just have to do that. And it's just it really does work, those mnemonic devices.
Yes.
In the learning.
Yes, they really do. Yeah.
Yeah. And what did I say? One of the things that I really liked about it is, so I had a couple of little small issues, and she says, oh, you have to redo those pages or redo those little things. And I thought, because I did it all in pencil, so I had to rub it out and redo it and fax it out and scan it and everything. I thought, oh, it's a bit pedantic. And I thought, well, no, actually, because you're making me do that, it's not just, oh, yeah, you got that wrong. It's, yeah, I did get that wrong, rub it out and actually do it right.
Yes.
There were tiny little things, but I thought, you know what, that is actually a really good process to make everybody go through, because now that I got that right 100%, I'm going, I really did max that out.
I really did it. Yes. Yeah. And I think what's important too, and for my students, there's actually a little thing here where the page numbers of the books are in the middle, right, of the book. And the reason for that is that as you're going through the workbook, and your students must correct both pages, and if they get things wrong, they have to correct them. I actually snip the outside corner of the book, because then it makes it easy when I open my student's book up. I guess I could grab one.
That's a good idea. You know where they're up to.
Yes, they know exactly right. Exactly. So then you can just snip it in, and then you go, oh, you're on page 26, and you just open the book, and those pages are snipped. So here's another little thing that I do with my students. I have little envelopes for each one of my students, and I have jars of beads. And so we only do this at the end of every 2 months. So for every page they have snipped, it goes into their little jar, and then they trade it in for beads, and then they get to make necklaces or bracelets or whatever they'd like. So it's just kind of a fun little activity for students to know that those snips are like currency, right? They're like money, and they get to buy things with their snips. But it's also important that they correct those mistakes, because we don't learn by just making a mistake and then going, oh, well. We learn by fixing those mistakes, and it is really important to do them correctly. And then you're like, okay. And then next time you'll just be a little more aware when that question comes up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's like a disposable. Oh yeah, I got that wrong. And then you kind of move on. But if you actually do go back, it's a little bit, I don't know, we used to do this, didn't we? But the kids don't seem to do it very much anymore. But I think it's a really good thing to do.
Yes. Really do. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So you've also got ability for us to have a small taste coming up, haven't you? You've got
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Okay, so we have got a fantastic webinar. It's a live webinar. I'm actually got 4 times for you. So whether you're in Australia or the UK or the US, any time zones, we got you covered. And I'm going to be going over, and I'll actually just, I think I had it pulled
I was
up.
going to ask you whether we could see that.
Yes, I will just do a quick screen share here. And I'm sure you'll put the information in the show notes anyway. So right here is, you're going to be registering for the live webinar. You don't want to miss this. It's absolutely packed with information. You're going to discover 3 master keys to teaching music theory more effectively. Where I'm going to be going over how to teach music theory in a really fun and effective way. I'm also going to share 3 of my best mnemonic devices. They're little theory secrets, and why you need them. And of course, that's we're going to explore learning styles. What's your back, visual, auditory, or kinesthetic? We're going to cover NLP techniques. And the ones that I'm sharing with you, you can actually use these immediately. So great tip that you can get to know. And this is going to change everything. And you know, I had the privilege of studying my NLP training. And when I completed it, I realized that I could really change the way I communicate with my students and therefore get different results. And that's the key. So, you know, expect great things from your students. And finally, you're going to learn how to increase your income and teach less. And yes, that is a thing. And I'm going to show you how you can get started with my step-by-step plan in teaching group classes. And we also have a special bonus. I'm actually giving you a professional development certificate upon completion of the webinar. And you're also, once you get registered, you're also going to receive your webinar workbook. And so you want to print that off and make sure to have that handy when we're going through the webinar, because I've got lots of fantastic tips for you. It's a 1-hour webinar. You want to make sure to get a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, whatever is going to have you ready so that you can really be present. And you want to show up live, because I've got some other secret bonuses that I will share, but you've got to be on the webinar to find out. So don't miss that webinar coming up. It's going to be fantastic.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're going to put the links to everything in the show notes below, so you can actually click on the link to get there. So that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Gloria, and taking us through your amazing body of work.
Thank you.
You know, 51 books and counting. And, and I can't wait till I finish my advanced, and I am a certified teacher myself.
Yes. Well, once you complete the certification course, you do receive your certificate. It is framed, and you can hang it up on the wall and be really proud of your accomplishment.
Oh, I will be, because it's certainly quite a journey to take, and it really does make me feel good doing it. Actually, it's really good. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.